Lap 1 fuckery, Piastri sabotage, and British bias against Hamilton. We've got it all to cover for this Mexican Grand Prix. So this is the Blatantly Biased Racing Podcast. Let's jump into it.
Welcome to the Blatantly Biased Racing Podcast. Now here's a bald guy and some Indian.
How are you, man? How's things?
Pretty tired. I'm pretty tired, but
Yeah.
I'm also pumped for the podcast. I would have pushed it for you. I would have tried to do it yesterday as well, but I was too tired. I was just
It's
tired.
crazy hours for you. And
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
for me, it was drinking time. So
I mean, if there are a few races on the F1 calendar that I actually, just push my F1 fandom, it
Yeah.
tends to be the one from when they are in America, or the northern Southern America. That's when the whole, you can say, the passion and everything it takes a toll. So
yeah, I mean, the thing for me is obviously it's the opposite for me. So usually when it's the other side of the world, so when it's like Middle East and Europe, it's really early in the morning for me. So these are kind of the nice races now where I get to be on my time. So
true.
cool. So you sent me the usual breakdown. I, as usual, didn't read it. So let me pull this up and see where we're starting from. Biggest takeaway.
I have it. I'll guide the ship as in the
As
worst
usual.
way possible. Just like we do always. So let's begin. Let's jump into it. First of all, what was your biggest takeaway?
Damage limitation for Max, I think, was the biggest thing. Dear God, Red Bull, as usual, just getting things right. Really, really worked out for him. I mean, nearly P2, if not for the VSC, which we'll talk about. But it could have been a P7, P8. Like, that's genuinely where it was lining up at one point.
Seems like
Probably P6 to P8, somewhere around there. Biggest takeaway is Max did damage limitation on the one weekend where I think Red Bull really needed to. Because I think most of the rest of the weekends, Red Bull should be there or thereabouts. So, title fight on. Big time.
6 points, right? Between Lando and Max?
Yeah,
36,
it's
37.
36. It's 35 to Piastri, 36 to Norris. And like that's realistically 9 points a weekend, 10 points a weekend, something around there that he needs to. 9 points. And that sounds like a lot, but you've got 2 sprint weekends and there's a couple of weekends where the Red Bull should be one weekend where the Red Bull should be a lot better than the McLaren. So
Vegas.
It's not as crazy an idea as it was a few races ago that Max is in the title.
I've been saying it for a while, and I keep getting. It's probably I'm pulling. You can say I'm pulling the curtain on a bit of chats I've had with a few of the Verstappen fans. Damien, I mean, he's been a guest on the pod. He's been like, it's very hard. It's not going to happen. And I've been telling him, mate, this seems legit. And I've been saying it since I think it was after Baku when I said that. Okay, Max is in contention now. He said, what the fuck are you talking about? I'm saying, it's happening. And once Singapore Grand Prix happened, he's even right now, I think he's trying to brace himself in case things don't work out. But I don't have to. He's a Max fan, so he has to do that. I'm a fan of the sport. I'm getting a world championship battle. I'm more than happy.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is as well, it's not just like, there's a few things that for me, as soon as Austin happened is when for me, I was like, right, it's on. One, the car is relatively close. I mean, Mexico was a bad race in terms of like pace deficit to Lando, for example. But like in general, they're pretty close. Mexico was one of the off tracks, but the rest of them, they should be as close as they were in Texas, for example. So even if they're not winning, he's going to be pretty close. So that puts Max in contention because Max will just maximize everything. But on top of that, like when it comes to just strategy and not fucking up, Red Bull is still a better team there at the moment. So like, Horner did good work. So they should be in it.
More upgrades in the next couple of races. So
Which I mean, I don't want to say that's a good thing because upgrades can go wrong as well. But they can always take them off if they're not working.
And remember, I talked about this specifically in the last part. I felt that Mexico was not going to be a Red Bull track.
Yeah.
The bumps, plus the higher altitude, you have to put a lot of cooling solutions that you have to put
And
in
just
place.
and it's just one of the tracks where McLaren get to run high downforce, which is their better setup anyway.
Yeah.
Like as soon as McLaren take the downforce off, that's when things seem to go wrong for them. So, which is why Vegas is going to be a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, and again, we'll dig deeper into it. I'll just share my biggest takeaway. And I think for me, the biggest takeaway is how did it take almost a decade to have a memorable Mexican Grand Prix?
Yeah, it's fair.
We came here in 2015. We've been here since 2015, and I think we missed the one in 2020 due to COVID and everything.
Yeah.
Other than that, we've been here, and I don't think even one race is memorable. And I think almost there's an 80% rate, or probably 100% rate. I might be wrong, but I think there's a 100% rate that the driver who led the second lap of the race in the Mexican Grand Prix ended up winning.
Yeah, I even put a tweet out just before the race started. I was like, who's ready for an exciting lap one followed by 70 laps of DRS trains? Because that's generally what we get here.
Yeah.
This was an actual exciting one. Like, there was still a lot of laps where it was typical Mexico of, just, okay, I'm following.
Yeah.
I'm following.
Exactly.
But
I mean, it's just Max who made a few things happen. You had Oscar trying, his move on George was brilliant. So you had some things, but
also some teams fucking up on strategies by still not realizing how Pirelli works helped.
Probably the only team that actually realized it was the one who ended up who could have finished second as well.
Yeah.
37 laps on soft tires. Great job, Pirelli.
I did a video about it and I was like talking about it. I was like, David Coulthard said it in Austin when Jolyon Palmer or Alex Jakes was like, oh, well, let's see if the tires will go to the end. And David Coulthard was like, they will. They always do. What are you talking about? They always go to the end.
But for him, I think for him to say such a thing is fine because he didn't drive in the Pirelli era. He retired before that, and he drove in the era of tire wars where the tires were just.
Well, he was specifically talking about like this season. He was like, they always go to the end. Like, what are we talking about?
Yeah, I think I remember. He said that in simulations, whatever tire life we tended to have, by the time the race came, it always tended to do better because of the more rubber and everything, right? It's just, I think for me, the biggest takeaway has to be the fact that I think our sport, a lot of it is run on autopilot and laziness. We don't focus on the product. And I think that probably for me, the biggest takeaway of the Mexican Grand Prix was we've just taken it as a fact that the race is going to be a dull one. And no one has any issue with that. There's nothing. Every year we come to this track, the driver that's in the lead, in the second lap, he's winning the race. Why is this happening? It's happening because of a few reasons. One of the biggest ones is you tend to, because by the end of the season, maybe it's just the laziness or teams figure it out. But Pirelli's tendency to be a bit more aggressive in terms of bringing a different tire compound, it's gone.
Yeah.
They've become so conservative that there's no point to anything anymore.
Well, there's so many issues. It's not just, it's Pirelli, but it's not just that. There's so many issues. Like there's even DRS trains here where like literally last season we talked about this too, where I was like, why do we have a double DRS zone? Like, why is it not like Brazil where there's an activation point in the middle? Like, that is the simplest change. They're not going to do it. Like, why is there not gravel on the outside of turn one? That seems to me like an obvious choice.
Yeah, I'm going to get into that one, yeah.
Yeah, like even the gravel strips would be enough, just something to unsettle the cars so they can't just dive across the grass, or bring the wall forward so they can't just dive across the grass for
No, that's not safety.
Who said safety? But the point is, like, there's so many things where I feel like the FIA and FOM, it's a situation where until ticket sales go down and people stop watching, they're going to be like, yeah, it's fine. Like
until it's outrage. Honestly, until there's outrage,
until it's not what selling out.
The whole thing with the too much coverage of the girlfriends and wives, right? We didn't see even a single clip of them in Austin. We didn't really see anything
till the podium, basically.
the podium. Yeah,
which is fine.
that's
Yeah.
all right.
I'm
Even
okay with that.
yeah, and even in Mexico, we didn't really see much of that, even though I think a lot of them were present. And I think
Yeah.
that change was brought in by the fans. And a lot, unless and until the fans are going to shout out the rooftops that this is not acceptable. And I think it seems to be that way because because FOM is fine with the product that it is putting out. The product is dog shit, by the way. Right now, the product is dog shit. And it is dog shit for one simple reason. You've done a brilliant thing in terms of pretty much shrinking the field spread. The top four teams are separated by 3 to 4 tenths. I mean, this race was an anomaly because I think just Lando unlocked an entirely different level. He was driving on easy mode this weekend. Other than him, this if you have to bring strategic variations, you need to have tires that help introduce something on those lines. You need to have at least a couple of stops. This time we had a couple of stops. We had a variance in terms of there's Max doing a single stopper, and then you have I think it was George and others. George. Look, if Ollie had not been pretty much a you can say a mobile chicane. Yeah, mobile chicane. Oh, we should bring him on as well.
Yeah.
If he was not a mobile chicane that was basically blocking almost all the faster cars, we might have had a more interesting ending to the race because I think the pace was there for Kimi, George, and Oscar
Piastri.
to
Yeah.
to maybe close the gap on Max, but we didn't really see that. But at least there was a strategic variation. So why aren't we doing that? Why is it that every race we go to, there's a qualifying tire, which is in general, this time around that was not the case. In general, there's a qualifying tire, which is a soft tire, and then you have a medium and a hard. It's become a norm, and that was never supposed to be the case. What was actually supposed to happen was the third tire compound was introduced to introduce a different level of
Well,
strategic variable in the race. We killed it.
It's worse than that now, though, because it's not that you have a qualifying tire and then a medium and hard. You have a qualifying tire and then a medium and a qualifying tire. The hard just doesn't get used anymore at all because the medium will go to the end. Like the medium will do.
Soft.
I guarantee you, if you put a soft on for one lap, pitted on lap one, went onto the medium, you could have run till the end in that race.
Without a doubt. I have
No
no doubts
problem
about it.
So, like, and worse than that, like, it's not even a case of you can get it to the end. It's you can get it to the end without a drop in performance.
Yeah.
Like, there's negative degradation as soon as so I don't know. I'm starting to wonder if maybe Red Bull were like, Max, can you like drop off some pace here so people jump onto a two-stop? Because basically everyone else then like went onto the soft and mediums, or sorry, everyone else went onto the mediums, the guys at the front, and there was no degradation near the end. Like Max or Leclerc and Norris weren't dropping pace at the end. Basically, maybe Leclerc a little bit, but I was
It was, but it wasn't necessarily the tires. It was lift and coast because of course it was lift and coast.
because it's Ferrari. Yeah, so I don't know. Yeah,
That's another
Anyway.
sad story.
Yeah.
So, yeah. It's just, and again, why the entire weekend, it just pissed me off for one very, very simple thing. Because the thing is, we keep coming back to the same problems again and again and again. We know the answers to it, and we don't implement it until there's an outrage or until fans come in and tell you that this shit is wrong.
Yeah.
And I don't think things should go this bad before people need to speak up. What the fuck happened on the first lap? Seriously, what the fuck happened on the first lap? As soon as that happened, my tweet was, good luck finding the correct order, because you cannot.
Yeah.
That was mayhem.
Yeah, like the thing is, I kind of like, I get, it's not Max and Leclerc's fault, for example, that they were able to take advantage. It's just like the way the sport is run that it just doesn't make any sense. Like, I get George's annoyance, right? Because George's annoyance is, how can you just like bail out across the grass on turn one and continue on, right? And the thing is, Max played the game perfectly because he was ahead of George, right, going into turn one. So he just was like, okay, well, the only people I actually overtook were the two Ferraris. I gave the position back. It's fine. George's point is, if you can go off at the end of turn one, then you can basically just kamikaze into turn one and be ahead anyway. So
Or
you don't
place
have
your
to
car
worry.
in a position where even if you don't pull off the move, you can just take the escape route and come back and keep the elevated
Yeah.
position.
So the point is, like, George could have literally just not braked going into turn one, been ahead of the two Ferraris, and just said, "Oh well, I was ahead of them before we got to the turn anyway." That's kind of the point he was making. Like, I don't need to prepare for the braking zone, so I have an advantage.
Or on a very simple, you can say a very alternate scenario. There were 4 cars. It was 4 wide. It could have been 5 wide.
Yeah.
George could have easily placed his car even further to the right or left, whichever side it is. And he would have just floored the pedal just like Max did.
Yeah.
And he would have claimed that, look, I was ahead.
So
The reason why he placed his car on the safe side because he wasn't playing the wrong game. He was being fair and clean. And he got penalized for it. He should have been P3. Lewis should have been P2. They weren't. Why? Because you've put a system in place where, first of all, the first lap is lenient.
yeah.
Secondly, if it is lenient, keep it lenient. I have no-
Leniency on the first lap is fine, but there's a
there should be a
limit to
deterrent.
it. Like,
There should be a deterrent, right? Because
Yeah.
even in Australia, I mean, Australia is probably the best example. You are not going to see people go off into the grass and just jump and gain positions. You know why? Because the grass in that particular case is so bumpy, you're going to fuck up your floor. And
Yeah, yeah.
in this current regulations,
Well,
if you fuck up your floor, you're
you'll
done.
bounce your car across anyway, so it's impossible to keep it under complete control going through there without losing a ton of time. Whereas
Yeah.
in this place, you could just skip across. Like, in reality, the thing is, look, to George's, the problem in George's for George's defense of this is Max was ahead way before the turn, right? Which is a problem for him.
Would he
you
have
know?
placed his car in that particular position?
No.
If he knew
that's-
if there was
See,
gravel
this is
in that
the
particular
this is the two sides to it, though, isn't it? Like, Max was way ahead of George going into turn one, right? So he technically didn't have to give the position back to George, given how the rules and stuff work. So sorry, George. Unfortunately, that's shit just happens like that, right? But the point is, it should never be that case anyway, because he should lose a ton of time going across the grass. Like, if you had gravel there, they're just not doing that. They're not bailing out like that. They're being a lot more careful, because you shouldn't be able to just go off track and still, like, it's not like they went across track and then came out behind the Ferraris. He went across track and was way ahead of the Ferraris and had to give the position. Like, you shouldn't be able to do that. You shouldn't be able to get such an advantage, because then you can play that game of like, oh, well, I'll go way out onto the left or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Again, this is not to bash Max. Play the game. Like, if the game's there, it's up to the FIA and FOM to basically say, no, that game should not be available, like, to the drivers. So it's nothing to bash the drivers. And I get why George is annoyed, and I get why Max made the move. It's not on either of them, you just shouldn't be able to do it. And then, we saw that obviously Lewis went off and got penalized as well, which we'll get on to. But yeah, I don't know, like, you just...
In case you guys are just you're listening and not watching, there's a sigh from from Jason just as he said, Lewis also went off.
Well, it's just...
We'll talk about it.
Yeah, it's just like Verstappen and Lewis were playing essentially the same game here. But
I think Lewis had no clue what the
I was going to say,
engagement
but
rules
I
are.
don't think Lewis has read the rule book, basically,
Exactly.
is the problem.
That's
Because
the
Lewis
problem.
actually could have played the game to a point where Verstappen would have got a penalty if he knew what the rules were, but he didn't for some reason. Or Verstappen maybe just, played the game better, I don't know, because...
And even leave that aside. At turn 4, when he locked up and went straight, why did you just throttle it and just went ahead? You have to come back. He was a part of a group of 4 or 5 cars. When he came out on the other side, he had I think 2 to 3 seconds off an advantage.
Well,
This is hilarious.
if he knew what the rules were, he could have played it even better, because you see where he locked up there? If he had just literally not locked up and basically not braked at all, or like feathered the brake, right? He would have been ahead of the front axle of Max, yeah? Max didn't stay on track. Max went off the track.
Look, Max was
Max...
turn 4.
Yeah,
Turn
yeah,
4,
Max...
Not
yeah,
turn
yeah,
3.
Max... Yeah, yeah, Max went off track. Wait, turn 4 or turn 3? What are you talking about?
The one for which Lewis got penalized
Yeah. So where Lewis went way off the track there.
and just went straight on.
Yeah, Max
That's
didn't
one-
make the corner in the white lines. Max was off... No,
his
Max went
two-
over the 4 lines. His 2 wheels weren't inside. He went off.
I am not entirely sure. I
He
think there were 2
maybe
wheels that were
from
on
the angle that he was at, maybe his front left was touching the white line, but his 2 rear tires were well
Yeah,
over it.
they
I'm
weren't. They
I'm
weren't.
pretty sure his front tires were over the white line as
You're right.
well.
You're right.
So
They
like
were.
the point is, if Lewis had have just literally, instead of locking up, right? if he had let off the brakes and rolled there and tried to make the corner, his 2 front wheels would have been ahead of Max's, right? Which means then he's entitled to room. Max didn't make the corner, which means Max would have been penalized for forcing Lewis off. That's all he had to do to turn that penalty around.
Exactly.
Instead, he locked up, went off. And because he locked up, Max entered the apex with his 2 tires ahead of Lewis's, which means Lewis wasn't entitled to any racing room, and it therefore didn't matter. But the point is, these rules are ridiculous.
Yeah. and you just need to have gravel. Look, if I think every time such nonsense happens, I think this entire debate, it brings me back to Saudi this season when Max basically cut the track and gained whatever advantage he did. It was the same. I think we reached the same conclusion then that we are reaching right now. You need to have gravel in places, or you need to have some kind of deterrence.
Can I be honest?
If it's not gravel, just put those cones or something, so that the cars would not have an incentive of just going through that.
Just make it. But the thing is, some people, the constant argument I hear is, well, we can't have gravel because of other sports running there, right? Like, in Mexico, first of all,
Austria, Austin,
you can have the strips, yeah. The other thing is, though, can I just be honest, with the amount of money that goes into these tracks anyway, they could easily just have, okay, for the F1 weekend, we're going to put the gravel in, yeah? Then we get big fucking telehandlers and tractors to come in, scoop the gravel out, put AstroTurf back down. You just roll the AstroTurf up, put it away, put the gravel down. Like, I'm sorry if there's any landscapers who are like, actually, but to me, I'm pretty sure you could do that. Like, I don't think it's a huge deal to do that. Or
you can just you don't even have to extensively put gravel. You can have patches of gravel. Even that
you can just have a big strip of gravel like they do at those tracks. Problem solved.
Australia is probably the best example. I mean, every time I come back to Australia, because specifically there, if you end up going through that, you're beached. Your car is beached. You're not going anywhere.
Or you're at least unsettled to the point where you're losing a massive amount of time.
Exactly.
To which point, if Max went around that way, George is ahead. Because you've lost so much time, George and the 2 Ferraris have taken off. It's not up to you to give the position back. You've already lost it.
100%. And that's it comes down, you know what it comes down to? It comes down to laziness. Every time we sit back and we talk about this, we talk about deterrence and having these things in place, the FIA, the FOM, they are busy with whatever nonsense they're busy with. Maybe have some more influencers waving the flags. Waving the checkered flag. I mean,
and by the way,
this is their focus. Honestly, you've turned the sport. There's a sporting aspect as well, and for the life of me, I don't understand why. And during the race, it was just a realization that struck. What the fuck are we doing? This is the 10th race on this track, and every time we come here, we have a dead one stopper. We know everyone knows. This is worse than Monaco. Even in Monaco in the last decade, if you just go back and look at the things that are happening, it's not the driver that is ahead on lap 2 ends up winning. Here, that's the case. It is fucking worse than Monaco. What's the point?
Yeah. I don't know. The last thing I'll say on the whole skipping the grass thing as well for like everyone is just, the simple fact is I know there'll be like, say Max fans, for example, listening who are like, it's fine. Like, what's the problem?
I'm the favorite, by the way, right now, because in the Lewis Max collision, I'm taking Max's side.
Oh, look, Max.
I'm the best. I'm probably the best. I'm the biggest Verstappen fan right now.
Max played the rules perfectly. I don't see what the problem is. Max, I looked at it the whole way as well. Like Max positioned his car perfectly, so he wasn't in the wrong anywhere. It's up to Lewis. Lewis should know the game. Like that's on him. I think personally, like the rules in the overtaking are too prescriptive in that you can just play the game whenever you want. Fine, whatever. The only thing I will say is there are probably some Max fans who are annoyed about the fact that we're like, well, you shouldn't be able to cut you over the grass there. It's like, well, you just played the game as well. It's like, fine, yeah, whatever. But this is not NASCAR. So if you're going to basically, like, if you're going to allow people to just skip over the grass there and take an advantage and be able to just go in hot, then why bother having a fucking chicane there in the first place? Like, just remove it and have a wide turn. Like, this is supposed to be F1. You're supposed to make the turns. And if you don't, you're supposed to be penalized for making the turns. Otherwise, what's going to happen, as always, is those Max fans are going to be annoyed about this. And at some race in the future, Piastri or Norris or someone else is going to skip it, gain the advantage. And they're going to be the same people who will complain because Max has lost out. So it's just, it's always the way. So can we just have some fucking rules and standards? Like, is it that much to ask? Because if not, why are we not just doing NASCAR rules?
Our
The
life
white
would be
lines are
so
guidelines.
much easier. I mean, yeah, honestly, our life would be so much easier if we just had gravel in place.
Yeah, that's all you have to
We've
do.
literally spent, what, 20, 25 minutes talking about there should be gravel.
Yeah.
The entire conclusion is there should be gravel.
Yeah, so let's move on to something else. Yeah.
Brighter stuff.
Yeah.
Your take on the whole Lewis Hamilton Verstappen collision and Lewis Hamilton getting penalty. Not collision, the incident, and him getting the penalty afterwards.
Well, look,
And why it's about him, why it's selective, whatever, selective targeting. Apparently.
yeah, this is the thing I've said from the start on this, and the simple fact is, Lewis deserved a penalty there. Max didn't deserve a penalty. Simple as, because the way, when we look at even turn one when they were going in, Max had positioned his car perfectly that he didn't force anyone off, and he left the track. He didn't technically gain an advantage because of the way the rules are. Then on the turn four incident,
explain the whole thing in a more in a way.
So
because look, the people that watch us, they are more educated than your average Joe. So explain why Max was entitled to room in T1, because ultimately his car was substantially, I think his front axle was substantially alongside Lewis's front mirror.
The way it works is your front axle of your car, so essentially the center point of your front wheel is the easiest way to think about that, is alongside, or it has to be at least alongside the mirror of the car. So the only thing is, I can't remember where he was positioned. If he was on the outside, he was overtaking on the outside, right?
Inside.
Was he overtaking on the inside by that point?
Yeah. So I'll try to explain it a bit.
I thought Max was right on the outside of turn one.
No. So what happened is in turn one, Max was in the slipstream. Apparently, Lewis made an error or something. So Max was in his slipstream. In the end, he jumped. He basically sent the car down the inside.
Took it to the inside instead. Yeah.
So the point where we try to make a judgment is right at the apex, and Max's front axle was, I think, alongside, or maybe slight. At least in my view,
it has to be at least alongside anyway. As long as it's even if it's alongside, it's enough. So if it's even slightly ahead, it's fine. If you're overtaking on the outside, your axle has to be alongside, at least alongside, if not slightly ahead of the front axle of the other car. So when you're on the inside, it's the front mirror. When you're on the outside, it's the front axles. Basically, have to line up. Yeah. So the thing is, like, as soon as Max is alongside the front mirror, he can force Lewis off if he wants. Like, he doesn't have to give Lewis any room.
You can't force. I checked the regulations. You cannot force him off. What happened was,
you're not entitled to leave them any room. You don't have to leave them any room.
Yeah, you're not entitled to leave them any room, but you cannot force them off or make contact.
You can't make contact, but you forcing them off is kind of arbitrary there, because if you don't have to leave them any room, then technically you can force them off.
Exactly.
So it doesn't
forcing him off in the sense that you don't make contact.
Max, you have to be fully within control, basically.
Yes.
And this is where
maneuver should be fully in. The car should be in control. It should not be a late dive bomb.
So essentially, according to all of the rules, Max did nothing wrong. And given that he was already ahead of George at that point, because he gave the two positions back to the Ferrari. I'm just saying at turn one, right? Because where George was complaining is that basically Max was skipped over.
They didn't even check it by the way.
Because Max was already ahead, so the move had technically already been completed.
But even in that case, there's apparently some sort of lenience that they give on lap one, because if you see what Leclerc did, Leclerc was probably more egregious. The way he had Lewis was ahead. And Leclerc just went off track and gained the position for some reason. Lewis was pissed, but he just bit his lip in the media when it comes to
because it was two Ferraris as well. They probably just didn't check it. So
could be, probably
typical. Because the same team isn't going to complain and shout over the radio, so they just let it go. It's always the case.
Lewis was asking for a switch of positions or something, if I'm not wrong.
And Ferrari said sorry. Yeah, go away.
Now coming back,
like I said, the turn 4 one then. Already explained.
No, wait.
Yeah.
The entire sequence of event is, first of all, on the first, there are two parts. First is when Max pushes Lewis off. The second is when Lewis essentially pushes Max off, because there's no room left.
You know where I'm getting confused here? Yeah, sorry, I'm forgetting. There was the lap one incident, and then there was the one after that. We're now talking about the one after that. My bad.
Yes.
Sorry. Yes.
Yeah.
This is where I was
Okay,
getting
so
confused.
that's why you were talking about the
George. My bad.
Okay, got
sorry.
it.
I keep forgetting these were in a couple of different laps.
Yeah.
Because there was the fuck up in lap 1, and then it was lap 3, right? Or lap 2.
Later. It was a
Was it
few
later
laps
than
later.
that?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So what happened is the later one, the Lewis Max thing. So Max basically lunged down the inside. At that particular point at the apex, he was substantially alongside, so he was entitled to room. And he did push Lewis's car off, and he made contact. The problem is when you make contact, you're basically breaching the what is supposed to be a perfect rules of engagement. Once he did that, Lewis came back on track. Now, once Lewis was on track, he was ahead at the apex when they were going down the inside. But Lewis also pushed Max off, essentially. So at that point, the whole thing, at least in my view, gets nullified. Now, when Max goes off, Max does something that Lewis didn't do at turn 4. He slows his car down. He lets Lewis catch up. And then at turn 4, we saw what happened. Lewis basically, he outbraked himself and he just went straight on. Now, the concern from the fandom is not that Lewis got a penalty for turn 4 just going off and cutting the track. It's for
that Max
why
didn't
Max
get a penalty.
didn't and Charles didn't. Because again, Charles didn't and Max didn't get for T1 for the lap 1 incident.
Yeah.
That's where the problem comes in. So your take on the whole thing?
Well, it's lap 1 leniency, isn't it?
That's the problem.
I just think the whole thing is just ridiculous, and I just think you need to have. Look, it goes back to what we were saying earlier. The problem is the rules don't really cover it, and Max just did what he needed to do, which was he skipped 2 cars, was ahead, as we said, and he gave those places back. So he's done what he needs to do, and there's kind of a gentleman's agreement that if you give the places back without any fuckery, they just won't look into it. So that's that. So I just think, look, I think what Max did was fine. I just think you shouldn't be able to make that level of an advantage by skipping a turn. You know, like you should just shouldn't be able to. Yeah. And it shouldn't matter that it's lap 1 or whatever. It should just be like, look, you skipped over. But the problem with that is the only way to actually make that work, as we said, the only way to do that and calculate it, because he didn't technically gain an advantage because he gave that position back. He gave both positions back. But that it shouldn't be good enough, because then there's a load of other drivers behind who made the corner, went through it properly, who then have lost out to even a chance of attacking because he's able to carry just way more speed into the corner because he's not planning to make the corner. You know, that way. I'm not saying that's what he did, because maybe he didn't. Maybe he just, but if you're allowed to get away with that, then it means you can do that. You can just carry way more speed in, jump across, go, oh, well, I only actually technically
has been the beneficiary of this 2015.
Tons of drivers have done this.
Yeah.
Alonso's the first to go, like, oh, I'll just skip the corner then.
He did that in Russia, right? 2021. Yeah.
He actually practiced how quick he could get through there. So
it's, I think
you just need to make it that it's like
it should be a deterrence.
Yeah,
going
like
off
even
track should be punishing.
Even if they don't bring gravel in, you can just do what they do at certain other tracks, like Monza. For example. You put bits.
Yes, exactly.
You know, like where Hamilton should have gotten or did get in trouble for not following race director's notes of going through the runoff thing. You just put a little kind of curve in there where, okay, Max skipped across, but he didn't actually go through the like runoff that you have to go through, and therefore he gets a 10-second penalty, which means drivers just don't do it because it's slower to go through. So even without adding gravel, keep the grass if you want. Just put a little runoff thing. So if you're not going to make the corner, you have to come off completely, turn through, come through a chicane. You lose ground to 5 or 6 drivers, so you're not going to do it. Don't even need to put gravel in.
Thicker or something. Just add. Just do something so that.
Just make it so that it's not worthwhile doing it. Like
exactly.
Simply put, that's it.
Yeah.
But they're not going to do that because it's more entertaining for them now. You know.
Yeah, it's not entertaining. It's stupid. Honestly, it's stupid because it's now 35 minutes and we've not even talked about the race.
We've talked about
the nonsense that happens. And again, every time we come back to the same thing, and I can count so many. This nonsense happens in Canada. This nonsense would happen in, it happened in Jeddah. It's probably going to happen on a few other tracks. The reason is because just going off track, there needs to be a deterrence. If you're going off track, it should punish the driver. And if it is not punishing the driver,
Yeah.
there's something seriously wrong.
You just, like I said, you have two options. You put gravel in, or you put in some sort of chicane curve thing that you have to follow, so that if you don't follow it, it doesn't even matter that you came out ahead and you skipped across. It's like, oh, you didn't follow the race director's notes, 10-second penalty.
Yeah.
Job done. You know, like it's real easy to do that. They do it in plenty of tracks. I don't see why they don't do it here. That way you don't even have to put gravel in. You just put an escape road. That makes it difficult to do.
That's probably a bit of a safety concern as well, right?
No, but the
for
escape
me-
road wouldn't be, because you could put the escape road right against the barrier. So you have the grass, you have everything else, but you have to follow the
Ideally,
escape
the
road.
grass is supposed to slow the car down. And
doesn't,
that's where the whole thing is. I don't think this grass was slowing anyone down.
No.
It was
Let's talk
just
about the
useless.
race. Let's talk about the race.
Sorry. Because this was so... This was
Oh,
so
we could talk
frustrating
about this
me.
for 14 hours, so let's talk about the race.
The conclusion is the same.
Yeah.
Have a fucking gravel. So you
Gravel
have-
or some sort of escape road.
Yeah.
One or
Okay,
the
let's
other,
talk
just
about
something.
Lando Norris then. The championship.
What a
favorite
great
of
drive,
parents.
right? Weekend. Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, because everyone has a 2-race memory.
Yeah.
So
Tell me something. Is this drive being underrated right now? Your view. Because my takeaway is what he did this weekend. I think this is what champions do. This is similar to.
if Max did
Sorry.
this sort of drive, everyone would be praising it as a typical Max stellar
Yeah.
performance. You know, leading every lap, you know, qualifying on pole, leading every lap, and especially like at a track where holding your position from pole is so difficult. You
Yeah.
know, like if this was literally just replace the driver's name with Max, and everyone would be going, that's why this man is a multiple world champion. Like that is just, you know, no one will be going, oh, well, he clearly had a Rocky's chip, you know, that way. But because it's Lando, it's like, yeah, but the car was just really fast. No, sorry. Brilliant performance. Holding it into turn one at this track is incredibly difficult. Like, we've seen brilliant drivers lose
There's
out at turn one.
40%. Before this race, there was a 40% success rate of holding the lead by pole sitter into T1. 40%. Out of 10 races, happened 4 times.
Mm-hmm.
And Lando is supposedly the biggest bottler on the Formula 1 grid right now. And he made it happen.
Yeah.
I think the problem is if this drive just replace
Not a
the
single
names,
mistake either, by the way, through the whole race. Like,
Yeah.
not one.
just replace the names. Max Verstappen wins the race from Charles Leclerc by 32 seconds. Yuki Tsunoda finishes P5. And just imagine the kind of praise he'd get.
Mm-hmm.
Oscar Piastri is not Yuki Tsunoda. Lando Norris made Oscar Piastri look like Yuki Tsunoda in the Mexican Grand Prix.
Yeah.
And this was brilliant. 32
Look-
seconds. Just a reminder, 32 seconds.
Lando is a brilliant driver, right? But he makes a lot of mistakes. And we dig him for that all the time. Like everybody does. We've done it. Like he should equally be praised when he does a spectacular job. And this was a proper I'm in the championship fight race. Like he went from 14 points back to a 1-point lead over his teammate. His teammate, who you've just pointed out, is not fucking Tsunoda. And what happens
Checo
now
or
instead...
Gasly or
Yep.
anyone.
And what happens instead of praise right now is comments like the one that I got on my video this morning when I woke up, which were simply, yeah, but if Oscar had the same car, we wouldn't be talking about this. That's the kind of shit we're hearing now, which is something must be going on. Why is Oscar suspiciously, which we're going to talk about, but like, why is Oscar suspiciously lost pace? McLaren must be doing something. Instead of praising Lando for a great drive, you know, they must be doing something. But when Oscar is easily, handily walking over Lando and Lando is nowhere, there's no talk about sabotage from the team. It's Lando's just bottling it, throwing it
Yeah,
away.
but no, I mean, there are kids on the other side as well. Even they have the same nonsense.
Sure,
I mean,
but this is my
I've
point,
spent
like
the
with-
entire season looking at two very,
This is my
very-
point. It's this constant thing of like when Max has a bad race, the car is shit. When Max has a good race, it's all Max. Nothing to do with the car, nothing to do with the team. So this was a spectacular drive from Lando and he deserves the credit for it. And the only problem I see is we've been here before and I'm just worried now that Lando will be like, oh, I'm in the lead of the championship. Let me crash into this wall. Because this is typical Lando.
By the way, Lando also revealed something.
The lap time delta
Yeah.
was interesting. Yeah. Sorry, you can explain to everyone.
So on the steering wheel, there is a lap time delta that is shown. I mean, they talk about it during the broadcast as well. So that delta is supposed to tell the driver, it's basically an indicator for you, whether you're point something ahead or plus something behind. Lando doesn't have that. Lando has removed it because his reasoning, and I think there are a few drivers that have done that. His reasoning is that something like that, it's a distraction for me. I tend to look at it a bit too much, and I tend to do my lap on the basis of where my delta is, and it's a bit of a counterproductive thing for me.
I think.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there. I think this is like maybe he's getting like performance coaches in or someone helping him, because I think Lando, like we've said, we're one of the few podcasts I think where we constantly say like Lando in terms of raw talent, in terms of just raw pace, maybe not raw talent's the wrong word, but raw pace is up there with a Leclerc, a Russell, Verstappen in terms of just outright
This was
pace in
max
the
level
car.
driving, by the way.
Yeah,
Without a doubt.
he is incredibly fast, right? The part where Lando falls apart constantly is in his head, because even in terms of people say, oh, we can't race wheel to wheel, that's bollocks as well. Like over the years, I've seen Lando pull off some of the best overtakes in Formula One, like just spectacular overtakes. I always go back to it, but the Monza one where I think it was Leclerc he was overtaking and he dipped onto the grass and just didn't give up and went through. Like Lando can race. The amount of times Lando has taken a shit car to a podium over the years that people are like, oh, well, he didn't have a win. It's like, oh, fuck off. Like that's like saying he didn't win in a Haas, you know? Like Lando is a spectacular driver. Where Lando falls apart is mentality, right? When the pressure gets too much, he lets it go to him. Maybe what we're seeing is just the pressure comes off because he's basically being told, look, let's just take everything out and just focus on that raw performance. Like just get out there and drive, you know, stop looking at deltas, stop looking at championship points, stop looking at fucking Instagram comments and just drive. And if he could just drive at his absolute limit all the time, Lando destroys a lot of other drivers, including Piastri, because he did it last year, you know? So like, I don't know, maybe Lando has just gotten the advice of let's just take all the weight off, forget about the championship, forget about everything else, forget about your own lap times and just go out there and do what you always do. Race, you know, like, and see what happens. And I think the fact that he didn't make a single mistake here, unlike, for example, Baku Singapore last year.
Yeah, for me, just one thing that stands out is freaking 32 seconds. And he was managing the race for a large part.
Yeah.
It wasn't a case of him just pushing and just trying to get that gap. He was managing it for a long time. And I think when you look at something like that, that's almost half a second per lap that he had on Charles, who probably had the second fastest car, maybe Max had the second fastest car, but it's a bit of a toss-up.
Yeah.
Even then, wow. That's brilliance, and that's something where, you know, driving excellence, the car, the conditions, everything just came together and you had this as a result. And before the race, you know, for me, I write a pre-race prediction article. So on that one, I specifically jotted down all these things that, okay, look, when it comes to the Mexican Grand Prix, there's a 40% conversion rate of pole position to lead into turn one. Then you have Lando, who's probably who's had a poor
worst starts. Yeah.
One of the worst conversion rates anyways. And then you add to it the fact that in Formula One, especially in the current situation, overtaking is not easy. I think, and I said, despite all these facts, the kind of performance he's shown, it makes it so hard to not pick him as the favorite. And yeah, I was right. I think even if he had not nailed the start, I think he would have still won the race. He would still walk.
Probably, yeah. I have to say I was surprised. I thought he would end up behind both Ferraris coming out of turn one. That was
my expectation as well.
I just assumed. And then I was like, he'll probably pick them off still though, because he's got a faster car. But spectacular. How did Oscar Piastri not win or come second in that rocket ship then?
So Andrea Stella has a theory. I agree with it to a certain extent, but I think there's something. I think there's probably chassis damage or something that's not wrong with the McLaren as well, because the gap is not. It's a bit too big for my liking and for how I rate Oscar as well. I mean, again, there's one thing I hate more than anything else, and it's the detractors that come out of the woodwork when things start to go wrong for a driver. At the start of the season, Oscar was even from us as well. We rated him as one of the best on the Formula One grid, and no detractor came in and claimed that no, he sucks. As soon as he started going through a bad period, there are geniuses that are trying to cite last year's races as, look, he struggled here last year as well. So he struggles in the second half of the season. And for me, the biggest example was, look, this season he has beaten Lando on tracks where Lando has not been out qualified in his entire career.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily a case of a track thing or something. This is something more than that. And according to Andrea Stella, it comes down to Lando is a driver who excels when conditions have lower grip. So in those conditions, he is a driver that can just wring the neck of the car and be a bit more smooth.
So what you're saying is he'd
slide
be
the
a
car
great
bit.
number 2 in the Red Bull.
Maybe that's one. That's what works for Lando. When he talked about Oscar, he said that what works for Oscar is when there are higher grip conditions. That's where Oscar thrives. Sorry. So that was the key difference. And one more thing that he touched on, he said that look, Oscar is in his third year, and there is a constant iteration and learning and growth that goes for a driver, and he's still going through that. Now the race also showed this thing. His pace was not bad. It was just that he was stuck in traffic. He wasn't as fast as Lando, because no one was as fast as Lando. But if McLaren had not broadcasted what they were going to do in terms of the strategy to the entire fucking world, that next lap we are going to pit and we're going to pit for soft tires, maybe he could have done better. So that's the long and short of it. There's something wrong. I don't know exactly what is. Maybe the next race they figure it out. But it seems that first of all, Lando has finally found the sweet spot in terms of the car. And Oscar is probably struggling a bit with some things, maybe a bit of confidence as well, because he doesn't look good in the car in any which way in the last couple of races.
To play devil's advocate on this, though, like the jump that, well, me for this purposes, but the jump between last season and this season for Oscar in terms of just raw pace, we were kind of like, whoa, that's impressive. Like to make that big of a jump, because Lando, like I know it was only a tenth or two, but Lando had consistently been ahead, right? At the start of the season, Lando continuously was just not comfortable in the car. Like he was making errors that even for Lando were like, this is kind of strange. Like his braking was bad. His performances in qualifying in the last laps were bad and so on. Could it just be a case that the car actually just didn't suit Lando for most of the season? Lando's got on top of it. And now Oscar, like the deficit, it's not that Oscar's fallen off. It's just that Lando's made that jump that makes Oscar look bad. And the other cars around, like last year, are kind of closer anyway. So Red Bull is now closer. So what's happening is, you know, it's just Lando magic again being quicker. You know, like maybe there's nothing more to it than that. But obviously, I know what people will say. Like there's obviously someone spiked the aero.
Yeah, but even I mean, just pushing back a bit on your theory,
it's not my theory. I was just playing devil's advocate.
Yeah, of course. Even in that case, my only concern is Oscar is not a driver who should be 2 to 3 tenths off Lando Norris.
He was last year, though, all season.
I'm just, and you know, this happens with me a lot because I hate it when people shit on drivers whenever they're going through a bad phase. So when people shit on Lando, I tend to take Lando's side because it's unfair. And right now they're shitting on Oscar, and I think it's unfair as well because this is not the real Oscar that
there's exceptions to that, by the way. If it's Lance Stroll, work away.
Just go for it. Just go for it. In the comments, tell what you feel about Lando. Everyone that is watching this video and has actually
about
reached
Lance,
this point,
you mean?
Tell your honest feelings about Lando. Just
Lando or
nuts.
Lance?
I'm sorry, Lance Stroll.
Lance.
Yeah. The genius from Canada. So anyways, it's for me, just coming back to the whole point. I think we are not seeing the real Oscar, and there's something that's gone wrong. Maybe it's the confidence in the car, something. And he's look, honestly, he's a brilliant talent. I
Yeah, yeah.
cannot state it enough. Let's give him time. Maybe 4 races left. Maybe he can figure things out. And I think just coming back to the whole thing, the championship battle and everything, I think it's just 4 races. Anything could happen. Form could go either way, and anyone could win at this particular point. I
Yeah.
just don't think it's the right time to just count Oscar out, just like it
No,
wasn't
no,
the
I
right
definitely
time to
wouldn't.
count Lando out
Yeah.
after Canada or after Zandvoort. As I said at that point, the season's long, and as I'll say right now, the gap is nothing. It's 1 point.
Yeah. In terms of raw pace as well, like both of those drivers have it. So it's just a question of, like, this is the thing, it's fine margins. And the other thing is as well, I know well, a lot of people are jumping to this silly sabotage thing, but like the other point as well is bearing in mind the things are so close right now. Lando just feeling like old Lando and getting on top of the car, you could easily say a tenth or two there. And a tenth or two in Formula One this season is easily the difference between first and fifth. You know, so like it's fine margins right now. So it's not as easy as just, oh, well, they must be doing something to the car if he's P6. It's like, well, P6 is a tenth or two, you know, that way. So like
Yeah.
for most of, I think, practice 3, there was a tenth between the top 6. So that's the kind of,
Even more. And,
Yeah.
and you know what was the bigger worry? Oscar was not top 6.
yeah.
He was nowhere, and every time he put together, like, what the fuck is going on with him? It's so, it's so surprising. But you know, and maybe a bit of it has to do with the McLaren car, which is a bit of a diva when it comes to understanding. When one driver figures it out, he just thrashes everyone, and the other struggles, and the balance just keeps on going either way. So
Yeah.
yeah, it could, as I said, for me, okay, let's talk about it specifically, including the third contender as well, bringing Max into the equation. Because
He's in it
I, sorry,
because he's in it.
yeah,
Yeah.
finally people can admit it. I think for this weekend, I think he'll be happy. 36 points, fine. 4 races, 2 sprints. That's enough to make a dent. And for him, the biggest thing that he would want to do is he'd start playing the mind games, and he's been there for a while. And I don't know what other people think. I think at this point in time he'll miss Christian Horner.
Yeah.
If he's honest to himself, he'll miss
Yeah.
Christian Horner, because Christian Horner would have already ratcheted up the narrative in terms of these two guys are weak and everything. Right now the entire intensity in terms of
Oh,
the way
he would
things
have
are being-
been worse than that. He would have been literally going, it's very strange what's happened to Oscar right now. And like trying to stoke up
Yes.
flames between the two of them.
Yes.
You know, and when the tape thing happened, Mekki has said, "Oh, we'll calm that down." Like
Why?
Horner would have been like, "Why does he need tape? Like, how bad is he mentally that he needs tape?" You know, like
Exactly.
he would have been playing the mind games all the way to the end. And
You
I kind
ratcheted
of
it up. Yeah.
Jolien and Alex Shakes were talking about this in free practice, I think it was as well, and it was like just it's kind of the DNA of Red Bull for so long has been to be those absolute pricks where they take every little advantage, like, you know, every little thing they can. And Mekies is trying to be the nicer guy. And I'm like, that's not Red Bull though. It's losing a bit of the,
What being Red Bull meant.
you know, I
right?
could see some of those mechanics who will be told stop doing that going, yeah, this is kind of boring. I'm going to go to a different team. Like, you know, if I wanted to be
Culture
this guy,
changes, right? Yeah.
yeah, because you're like, if I wanted to play with that sort of mindset, I'll go to Mercedes or something. Like, you know, we were here because it's fun. You know, like, like if you're gonna take the fun out, I'm just be an Austrian company. What's
Yeah.
the point? You know,
Exactly.
Like, so
mean, yeah.
they need to be careful not to lose that, because you lose that DNA, you lose a lot. Like, it's not just a simple. Any big company, you lose the DNA.
I think the biggest example is if you raise the tensions, you increase the temperature the best way possible, and you put 3 drivers in those conditions, and I think everyone would know which driver would excel, and it would be Max Verstappen. And I think that is being
Well,
taken away from him.
you want, like, the other two drivers are in the same team. If you can get them asking and questioning each other, like, even you put that in the back of Oscar's mind, like if Horner comes out
Just
and
say,
says,
Mark knows what happens when a driver is given preference.
yeah, exactly. Like, you start dicking about and saying those things in the press, like, well, look at Mark and Seb, or, oh, it wouldn't be the first time a Mercedes powered car they gave preference to one side of the garage, like Rosberg and Hamilton. Rosberg never really had preference, like they knew who they wanted. It was the British guy,
Who's going to be the Rosberg of McLaren, right?
like that,
or who's
Horner
going to
would
be
be
the
out.
Weber of this team. Yeah, that's just so many things.
Horner would be out saying all of those things, like, oh, well, Oscar's down in P6 because that's where McLaren want him, like all of these things.
Yeah.
But it loses a little bit of it for me.
It's milk toast now.
Speaking of, just before we leave all of this, though, speaking of, fabricating the end of a race, the VSC, should we touch on it real quick?
What's your take on it, by the way?
I think I agree with Max. You win some, you lose some. It's just unfortunate. And actually, if you look at exactly what happened, I know a lot of people want to go into the FIA just want this to be a title fight. First of all, the FIA don't. The FIA, people don't understand the structure. I've gone through this so many times. FOM is who you mean, not the FIA. There's anyway. This was a very simple one if you look at it. I get how it looks from the offboard, but for anyone wondering, there's two reasons why a VSC was pretty much automatically flagged. One was, as far as I'm aware, there's an automatic thing where if a car is still on the track and the driver gets out, it automatically triggers a system to kick off a VSC. And technically the car was still on track and therefore it triggers. The other thing was there was also marshals immediately on track because the car basically started to get on fire. So the marshals rushed out onto the track. So then the VSC's gone. As soon as that happens, it then takes like half a lap to a lap to kind of figure that out. So it's just unfortunate, but it's not anyone fucking with it, basically. It's unfortunate for Max
safety.
And for us watching.
It's safety, and I think they had to do the safety thing after they fucking let those marshals out when Lawson was on track. That was so fucking stupid. I mean, brave bastards, guys. He was at least doing 100 or 150 Ks at that point, and these guys just ran in front of him. Like, what are you guys doing?
I don't get why the VSC wasn't pulled out there. I'm not sure what the...
They were just picking up a couple of debris. It wasn't really that big a thing.
I think actually, sorry, I believe the race explained this. They were rescinded from going. They were rescinded from going out on track, and there was a mistake basically where that actual order to go out on track was rescinded. Therefore, the VSC wasn't flagged or something because the guys were supposed to not go out on track, but it wasn't passed to the side of the trackers. It's basically, there was a communication error which meant that the system didn't trigger something or something like that. But anyway,
I mean that's the race's explanation. FIA was playing it safe with this and that. It's simply a case of there was a couple of those they had to pick. They just mistimed it in terms of the way the communication went. So in a way, they have a similar one, but just the delay in terms of sending a message. The entire group went, and then later came Lawson, and they just didn't calibrate that.
Yeah.
One thing, by the way,
so we have a few more things to talk about outside of the race, I guess, before we get to questions, right? Pirelli super tires. Let's leave.
We've done
it.
Yeah.
Ollie Behrman, incredible. We can spend a minute maybe just going, brilliant.
He's the next Ferrari driver, and
he's a much cheaper alternative for Lewis Hamilton. So
yeah. By the way, just touching on Lewis Hamilton's performance, I think the pace is there. I think he's getting there. He needs to get his head straight, to be honest, because he's just losing it.
Another example, by the way, of like what we were just saying with Oscar, where for the most part over the last few races, I think you pointed out he's been like 2/10 off of Leclerc, but the difference between 2/10 is like third or fourth down to sixth or seventh. Like that's how big of a gulf that is.
He's closer to a 10th as well now. I think he was just 10th off this time around. The problem with him seems to be he's not putting everything together. And I think once he starts doing that, he'd be a bit more of a challenge. He did that to a certain extent in Austin in the sprint. But yeah, let's see what he does.
And then all he needs is Ferrari to build a decent car. So he should get a chance around 2056 if he sticks around for a while.
I mean, him and Alonso just trying to get the next one. So
yeah.
By the way, just touching on it a bit before we go to the questions, the fucking cost cap. Who has breached it? We have no idea. It seems it might be McLaren or Mercedes, but it's
So this is super interesting because basically, right, from everything I've heard, it's not Red Bull, it's not Ferrari, but it is one of the top 4 teams. That's essentially the thing I'm hearing.
Yeah.
Which brings it to McLaren or Mercedes. I'm hearing Mercedes.
I have no idea.
Speculation though, but I'm hearing Mercedes. One of the strangest things I heard though, and this was properly from someone just I have no reliability in, but very interesting. $30 million is floating around.
No, that's not.
Which it's bullshit, I assume. Because
they said they branded it on McLaren, and if by the way, how I got to know about it is from Damien Clapped, the friend of the pod. So he pinged me and he asked that, do you think there is any semblance of legitimacy? I said, no. It's
I don't think so either.
There's 165 is your cost cap. You're not going beyond 5 mil is my expectation. 5 to 10 mils is my expectation.
5 million and over, I believe, is this difference between minor and major,
5%
right?
is minor, so that's your 8 million. And your substantial or the major one is above that.
I am hearing it's major though.
Yeah, it's major. It's major.
Which means over 8 million.
Yeah. But 30 million.
That's insane.
It is insane, but it could also be an accounting error. From
Well,
from that background, it could be accounting error.
Yeah, it could be, but it's still like it's a lot to go over in an accounting error when you need to be watching this shit. The thing that
could happen when there's one way it could happen. It is just the unforeseen expenses when it comes to the crashes and everything. And Mercedes had a few.
Well, I'm hearing the reason I'm hearing Mercedes is twofold. One is something to do with engine development that they thought was under engine cap that actually comes under cost cap. That was one thing. I can't figure out what that would be though. Like I've gone through the financial regs and I can't think of what would cross over there. But that was one thing I heard was basically there was something Mercedes had developed, like put into development that they thought would come under the engine cost cap that actually comes under the regular cost cap in terms of like testing development. I can't find any way that would be, so grain of salt. The other thing I heard was that they thought that something wasn't covered when it comes to Kimi Antonelli's testing program that they heavily invested in last year that could have breached over. And given it is 2024, we're talking about not this year for anyone wondering, that also kind of stacks up. I just don't get how Mercedes or McLaren would go over. That's I know a lot of people are thinking McLaren. Yeah.
A lot of people want McLaren to be.
Yeah, because then they'll lose. If it's a major overspend, they can kind of kiss their constructors title goodbye last year.
Let's see what happens, because as I said, since this thing is getting delayed and there is no credible evidence coming out, it means a couple of things. First thing it means is it's not McLaren, because if it was McLaren, it would have already been thrown to the curb. Well, McLaren does not command the same level of, let's just call it, clout that Mercedes does in terms of
the idea of it being Mercedes or McLaren just stacks up to me because both of those teams are quiet and they're both quite friendly. So it's one of them. You know, if it was
Toto,
Red Bull,
he's so fucking screwed because the kind of moral nonsense he spouted in 2022 when Red Bull did that.
I wish Horner was here because Fred has been nice about it and he's been like, well, you know, it could be whatever, blah, blah, blah. If Horner was here, he'd be like, well, you know, we know who it is, don't we? You know, he'd be immediately.
At least, yeah, you know, everyone is so chummy. I hate that. There's no rivals. There's no rivals there.
The tape thing with Mekias really pisses me off. Oh, we won't be doing that anymore.
That was rubbish. He came. He said that the whole thing went overboard and we won't be doing that anymore. And I'm like, why?
Yeah.
Why?
Like, you can legally do it. Why would you not do it?
Exactly. Increase the pressure as much as you can.
Make it a boiling pot. Yeah. Like,
I'm pretty sure that he didn't even know that such a thing was going on.
Because he doesn't.
I won't be surprised. It might be something that the
he's
sporting
still
director
learning how the team runs. Like, he's still learning. It's not. Yeah. Anyway, we're not having this conversation again. But yeah.
Moving on. Let's talk. Let's get to the questions.
Before we do, quickly, just on a related note, Christian Horner, 1.5 billion or something.
1.7 billion, by the way. So, again, guys, always a thumb rule whenever you're looking at reports and everything that's coming out. if it's coming out from the British media, it's basically Christian Horner who's leaking the stuff right now. So if this 1.7 billion figure is coming out, it's from him. Just a teaser in terms of what a 1.7 billion. Okay, so first of all, let's explain it because maybe a few people have not seen it. So Christian Horner is currently being backed by investors from where we don't know, but the entire, you can say, the financial investment that he can muster together at this point, it's around 1.7 billion
Dollars,
So-
right? I think it's like 1.5 billion pounds.
Yeah, 1.5 billion pounds, 1.7 billion dollars. Here's the thing that happens with it. If it is 1.7 billion dollars, except the top 5 teams, including Aston Martin, every other team he can just take over.
If they were up for sale, obviously.
You can do hostile takeovers.
Well, I mean, sure, but it depends who owns them. Like, obviously, Haas's team is basically
Alpine,
completely owned.
as I said.
Yeah, but like Haas's team is basically completely owned by Gene Haas, so you would have to get Gene Haas to buy in. But there's other teams like Alpine, as we've consistently discussed.
Selling Alpine is probably the most, you can say, what should we call
Darrelton.
Darrelton
The only
is not going
thing
to sell it because it has put in so much money and they have the right person
Yeah,
playing
yeah,
James Vowles. They're not going to.
No, they're
perfectly
not.
placed to make it big right now.
The only thing I will say is Darrelton is a public traded company, right? So Darrelton itself though is massive, right? So obviously you're not going to take over all of
It's a hedge fund.
Darrelton.
It's a hedge
Yeah,
fund,
like
right?
obviously you're not going to take over all of Darrelton just to get the F1 team out of them. No, it's not publicly disclosed. My bad. Sorry. I thought it was a company trading on the stock market. But yeah, so they're out. Never mind. I was thinking there might be a roundabout way for like if
I
it was
know where
Saudis,
we're
if it
going.
was Saudis to just be like, just get the Saudis to take over the whole thing and just give me the F1 team out of it. You know, like it could. My point is, it could be done. But
The thing is, even
unlikely.
if you get that picture out of the picture, he can almost buy 50% of Aston Martin and take over.
Yeah.
1.7 billion investment that he's got, that's massive. It's game changing, by the way. He's coming back in a substantial role is what I can conclude. Which way he's going to go, I think we don't really know. We have no idea. But he's probably he'll be the team owner of sorts, right? That's where we're heading.
The thing is, Alpine. This makes Alpine more an obvious choice to me because I think like some people are using this to say like, well, that's his perfect buy-in for a brand new team. I just don't think that makes sense because like you're talking nearly well, a third of that at least is probably going to be spent just campaigning and paying the entry fees and so on, right? So then you've got to build the team out from that. So you're just spending so much money where you could just buy an existing team and you wouldn't even have to buy all of it. And Alpine, that goes back to
500
Alpine
million,
for
right?
me. Yeah, like it just goes back to Alpine for me because he wouldn't even need to buy out all of Alpine. He could buy a good chunk of it. And you could also
76%
sidestep a lot of the big players because it's Renault, you know, so you could go to the French government and start saying, look, your team is going nowhere. You're spending money on it. Let me just invest. I want 50% of the team. I'll give you 750 million for it. It's, you know, then all of a sudden, it's not just the team talking about it. You're talking, it's on the floor of Parliament, essentially, in Paris. You know what I mean? Like, all of a sudden, it becomes a thing where they're like, well, why are we spending money on this? You know, like, I think it's Alpine, but we'll see.
If he comes back, I think it would be Alpine, yeah.
Yeah.
Right now, that's the front runner, and yeah, I don't really think unless something big happens in terms of Toyota wants to come back with its own team and he wants to be the figurehead, right? Or Hyundai.
Yeah. Or unless Lawrence Stroll wants to get out and they can buy like 60%, 70% of it. But I just don't see that happening.
He's selling it to Saudi. That's, I mean, that future, whether it's next season.
Unless this money is just all from the same people who are buying. In which case it would be quite funny. But, you know, at this point, Ferrari might as well sell for 1.5 billion. That's about all it's fucking worth. So, anyway, let's get to questions.
Yeah.
We'll more of this.
Take the Twitter ones. I'll pick it up from the YouTube.
Cool. Okay. I'll just jump out. I've got the X one here, so I'll do the first one. How the hell, the Sud says, how the hell are soft tires lasting for around 30 laps in a race where the average temperatures are much higher? Is this a tire classification issue? It's a Pirelli issue.
Yes.
Put C6.
Another thing, why do we only have till C6? Why not more than that? Why there are 24 tracks? How are 6 compounds in this case sufficient for the entire calendar?
C6,
Doesn't make sense,
C3,
right?
C1. Put those tires for every single race and let the teams have to deal with it. You know?
C6, C5, C4. The thing is, they ran a single stopper on C5, C4 this time around. It shows how pathetic. They strengthen the compounds to such an extent that they don't have softer compounds anymore.
That's what I mean. You put a C6 in to the point
Just
where it's
give
only
them intermediates.
But no, it's like C6, C3, C1, right, is such a big difference that you have a choice to make. You either run the soft for like one lap, right, or you go on a hard at some point that's incredibly slow, or you try and get the medium. My point is, you're going to get a mix there because there's so much variety.
The problem is, if a C3 is good enough to run the entire race, then why would anyone even touch C1? That's where the problem comes in. Right now, they didn't even touch. I mean, I think Albon ran hards. For what reason, even he doesn't know. Even he was pissed off why he was put on that. Colapinto as well.
I believe that was a reprimand though for overtaking at Austin, probably.
What nonsense was that, honestly? Yeah, Alpine being in its feelings for P17, P18 it's basically on brand.
Yeah, I don't know why they said hold position anyway. There, like, what are you talking about?
Utter nonsense. Anyway.
The only other question was from Sushi, who said that soft stint by Max was something only he can pull off, which that was the first part of the statement, which, by the way, I'd say is incorrect because Leclerc did it in Austin, just to point out. But anyway, it was an amazing
Sushi's,
stint.
I think, a Leclerc fan.
Yeah, an amazing stint, but not just Max. Leclerc can do it too.
Yeah.
Do you think this floor upgrade will pay off in the next races with proper tuning? Yeah, I think the fact is, look, their car's already up there, so if it brings any performance, it's going to really help. And they're in the advantageous position that no one else is bringing upgrades. Yeah. So as I said earlier, if it doesn't work, they're in the great position of they can just go, right, we'll take it off and fuck it in the bin.
Exactly.
Good luck in 2026, though, because you haven't got Nui and you haven't had the head start.
Yeah.
And you've got a new power. Yeah, problems. And you haven't got Horner to rebuild, so good luck with that. Yeah. Las Vegas seems to be the best bet for a McLaren off weekend. Yeah. 100%.
100%.
Yeah, I could see that being the one where Max only needs 9 points a weekend, right? Which is tough because it's out of his hands. So if Lando, for example, wins every race for the next 4, let's say, for example, right? Or even if there's a mix, no, I guess what would have to be one of them. But if one of them wins every race,
if Max wins every race and Lando is second in all of them, Lando still wins the championship by I think 5 or 6 points.
Yes, that was what I was trying to get to. Sorry. Yeah. So it's out of his hands.
Baxter, shout out to you. Hope the kid's doing fine.
Yeah, congratulations. That's where it's out of his hands. But realistically, I could see a situation where he gains 15, 16 points in Las Vegas.
Any over mistake, both of them. Man. Once the pressure is high.
Yeah.
Kimi overturned 17 points in 2 races?
Yeah.
And that's in the old, you can say, the point system. And at that point, you got 10 points for winning a race. Yeah. Anything could happen. The point is, Max is within touching distance. And in the last race, if we have Max within touching distance, you cannot rule it out.
The simple fact is, Max won't make mistakes. So it's really up to how well can McLaren perform. And will Red Bull fuck up at all, which they probably won't either, because they're quite good.
How much Oscar becomes a factor. That's also there, yeah. Now let's get to the YouTube thing. YouTube has a few. Lebel Lady. No questions, but I have to ask. Am I the only one who's getting tired of the back and forth at McLaren? I think the back and forth she means between Oscar and Lando in terms of the way the tide keeps on shifting. I'm fine with it because, again, it
keeps it interesting.
I think the reason is this is probably the first time since 2015 or 2016 when we have two drivers that are more or less similarly paced and the team has given them equal tools. And that's why you're seeing these swings. You don't
Have they
see
given
these
them
swings.
equal tools?
Yeah, probably. Supposedly they've been given equal tools, but maybe
Yeah.
not. And that's why we are seeing something on those lines. Plus, these regulations, they are very sensitive. Things work and they work brilliantly. If they don't, you're fucked. So that's
Yeah.
why.
You got Zach Brown in the back. Don't worry, Lando. I'm going to go and puncture the tires.
Yeah.
You can see how Lando is doing so. I hate the way he pronounces that. Lando.
It's very American.
Yeah.
I think 2026 is also going to be very, very, you can say,
Interesting.
critical for McLaren. Because if they scrape through and win the championship this season, then it's fine. If they don't, yeah, they'll need to bounce back.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyways, Fantastic Frog 200. Do you guys think Max fumbled this race?
No. Not even
The race
slightly.
pace seemed at least, if not better than Ferrari. True. If Max had, if Max had qualified better, the term we use for Lewis, I think a lock-in for P2 was quite attainable. Maybe even a race win if the setup was quite a little bit better. So
Yeah.
a P2 was possible.
Good
I
old
think the
Sainz,
race win was-
still a Ferrari driver at heart.
The race win wasn't. I think what
The race win
worked
was just
for-
never on. Like,
Yeah.
that was just not on.
But there's one thing, by the way. Max took a lot of risks this weekend, and if they had gone sideways in either of them, he was fucked big time.
Mm-hmm.
The whole thing with Lewis, if somehow he had come off worse, he was losing a chunk of points. And even on the first lap, the way he went through the grass, he could have easily damaged the floor.
Oh, yeah. Like, he could have easily been in a position where he's 25 points lost to Lando, which
And
is,
you're done. 60 points in 4 races. Goodbye.
yeah, impossible, but
Yeah, but again, that's the kind of driver he is. He doesn't give a fuck.
Also, can I point out as well that Red Bull very much, they were talking about this basically the whole weekend, that Max was saying like the qualifying pace just wasn't there. We're just going to focus on making the race pace right. So
Yeah.
I think they probably could have gained a couple of positions in qualifying, but then not been anywhere in the race. And it turns out that doing that worked out because they were able to keep the tires in the right window and everything. So
37 laps, I think it did.
yeah, I think that was a gamble, kind of throwing away some qualifying pace to get the car right. And it worked out.
Worked
you know?
out brilliantly.
Yeah.
Ahmed Fabli. Okay, so did you guys see the footage of Lawson almost hitting to? Yeah,
Yeah. Crazy.
that's very scary. Fine.
You had 100
literally could
points
get
if you
another
hit them
Tom
as
Price
well.
Fiddle incident. Yep. Sorry?
I said you get 100 points if you hit a Marshall as well. I believe that's the new rules.
Might save Lawson's career in that case. Did Lando finally get the mental strength that he needed for the championship? I'd say he got the feeling in the car. I'm still not sure if he got the mental strength because it
Yeah.
hasn't been tested.
The thing is, I will say it does look to me like maybe someone's giving him good advice of figuring out like what works best for him, because the delta time, the way he handled the first turn, all these different things, like it seems like a driver who's just in the moment and not getting bogged down. But the problem is, as I said early on in the podcast, is like he's now leading the championship. So let's see if he like throws it out the first lap of the next race
Yeah.
or something, you know,
Yeah.
like,
Let's see.
yeah.
Okay, next is thoughts on Rovanpera leaving WRC for F1 seat. Do you believe he can succeed? I think we
No.
talked about it last time around. I think I'm not sure, honestly, because he's 25. He's not too
Yeah.
old, and he is a talent behind the wheel of the car.
Palmer went on a rant about this.
He went on a rant. it was a bit weird because the way he talked about it.
It was funny that it was like a typical F1 driver thing of it's very different, because it was really funny of what was it? It was like well, Raikkonen did it the other way around. He went from F1 to rally, and Jolene goes, "How did it go?" Not great. Yeah. I don't know.
He's
I think
right.
he can. I think he can make it over to F1 maybe if he pushes, but like,
He's
will it
done
work
circuit
out?
racing as well. I
Yeah.
think the thing that happens when F1 drivers move to rallying is you don't do rallying often, and
Yeah.
especially after what happened with Kubica, you don't do it at all. And it seems that he has done a bit of circuit racing, but let's see how he does. And so the problem is Super Formula is very competitive.
Mm-hmm.
So how he performs there next season, we'll see, and then
Yeah.
afterwards, it's just You take it from there.
Yeah, well, he could do well, but it's just generally speaking, the
Talent is
crossover
there,
doesn't.
but you need the reality about Formula One is there are so many talented people. You need talent plus grooming, and Max Verstappen started racing at the age of 3. So that's a 22
It's
year
just a
head start
completely
that he has.
different. It's just such a different sport. Like, it's a completely different sport, you know. So yeah, we'll see.
We're not in 1990s or before that.
It's so different. Yeah. Yeah.
Flaky. Kind of funny how usually the dull Mexican Grand Prix was better than the last couple of races. True.
Yeah.
If Pirelli would just go 1 or 2 steps softer in all races and keep the gap of the hard tire like they did in the last 2 races, we could have We could have a more entertaining season.
Yeah. I think if Pirelli were just replaced with Michelin, we just would have better racing. Or
I don't
Bridgestone.
I don't agree. I think they'll be in the same situation. They'll keep bringing harder tires, which are tough, which are you just can't race with. So,
I don't know, man.
Okay. Do you guys think Piastri will get his shit together now after losing the lead in the standings? Also, would you rather have Mexican Grand Prix or Road America on the calendar? Or even better, get rid of the Las Vegas pig?
Yeah. Vegas has been interesting, though, because Vegas, the first year was actually really good. The second year was okay. Let's see if it becomes a Baku now where it's like, this is an incredible track that all of a sudden then you're like, you know.
Vegas is one of the most palatable American races for me because it's at 12:30 p.m. or something, which is like the perfect time. Instead of staying up until 4-5 a.m.
It's at like 9 a.m. for you. Or it's midday for you, is it?
Roughly, yeah.
Okay. Yeah,
I think around
it's
12:30 p.m. is something.
Yeah, it starts at
when
like
the race
10 p.m. for me, if I remember correctly. So
Yeah, so something on those lines, which is perfect. Perfect.
Yeah.
That's the best time. Okay. Replace it with I don't really care. I'm fine with Mexico being here. I just have softer tires.
yeah, just softer tires, gravel, and switch out that fucking first DRS zone. Like, why is that not done? Although actually, it doesn't matter. DRS is gone next year, so it doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Luke Wilson. So as a newer fan, I never know what people mean when they say that F2 and F3 is not really a spec series. Why is this said?
Well, it technically is a spec series, aren't they? But it's just, the thing is, there's just so much variability in setup and between the teams and how they run their cars that it's not a spec series in that, like, they all have to run the exact same setup and these kind of things, and that can make a huge difference between the cars. So, like, it is a spec series in that they run the same chassis and engines, but there's just so much setup variability, especially in F2, that you can have a massive gulf between two teams depending on their resources, because you have to still, like, simulate and kind of build things out where, like, you know, if you had a spec series where the setups are, like, range is tiny, then it wouldn't matter a huge team to a small team, because it then all comes down to, like, okay, can we just pick the best setup for the race? You're talking like these teams go and do simulations of races and so on, and, you know, run things through even CFD just to find out
Different
which
budgets.
setup. Yeah.
There are larger scale teams, there are smaller scale teams, there are more people in one team, there's less people in other teams. Then you add to it one of the major issues, which is that one Mechachrome engine might have X power, the other Mechachrome engine might have X plus 50. It's so variable, there's no quality control, it's dog shit. Races, the engines just die. I mean, I've seen races where I can literally tell, okay, these two cars are not the same. And this happens within the same team. Sometimes the chassis is broken, you don't even know, and you get to know after half a season. I mean, Jack Doohan probably got his, I'd say, the junior career kind of screwed by the way things happened, because if he spent almost first 6 races of his season with a cracked chassis, and no one knew where his pace went. And when the chassis was removed, he ended up finishing 3rd in the championship and just within touching distance of, I think it was Dragovic.
Yeah, it's all these different things. Like, the bigger teams can, like, scan those chassis and stuff as quickly as they want.
100%.
And stuff. So
That's why you have teams like Prema and others. Prema, ART, all these teams, they have more budgets and more funds, and they tend to do better in that sense.
Yeah.
And other teams struggle.
In a proper, like, if it was a proper kind of spec series, you wouldn't have that much freedom to spend, basically. So that's the difference. They are spec series in, like, just on the plain paper way of saying things. You know,
Exactly. Okay, why does this title battle feel like a like a limp dick? It doesn't feel like any of the three in contention deserve it, even Max, because they haven't maximized a handful of races. Oh, I think the reason why you're making this comment is because we've all been a bit spoiled by Max Verstappen in the last few years. Because the way he's drove, it's not natural and it's not the norm. He's going to probably end up as one of the top two, top three drivers ever in F1 history. And that's the level at which he performs. You get him out of the picture, you have people like even Lewis. You go through Lewis's seasons, 2019, 2020, you're going to find races where he took days off.
Yeah.
That's the biggest problem which Lewis has had in his entire career. You go back even further, Seb's 2012 was probably not the best in the first half. I'd say the first 5-6 races until he figured out the car. And the same goes even beyond. So
Yeah.
this is how a normal title battle is, where things move both direction.
Yeah.
Okay, Dane Lua. Who do you think would win the Drivers' Championship if Max doesn't win all of the remaining races? So it's basically between Oscar and Lando. Who do you think wins?
I mean, my gut says Oscar just because I feel like Lando just constantly cripples when there's a bit too much pressure. But momentum can be a big thing in F1. And at the moment, like, there's 4 races left and Lando seems to be in his groove. And if I was to guess, like, who's the faster driver at their very core, like, if they're actually driving at their best, I think Lando is still a faster driver. And that can make up for a lot. But I'd probably still say Oscar. I feel like he can probably just pull something back.
The big moments. He wins the big moments,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
In short, Oscar wins the big moments. And again, that's the problem with having the memory of 2 races. Because if you go back and look at the last 2 to 3 races, it's Lando. But
Yeah.
if you go back and look at the entire season,
It's Oscar.
yeah, it's Oscar.
Yeah.
Okay, next. Why were Ferrari all of a sudden in the last 2 races? Why has Ferrari been fast in the last 2 races?
Ferrari things. Like, this is...
He said, please don't say Ferrari being Ferrari. So
It's true, though.
I'll give a bit of an explanation.
The altitude here helped, obviously.
The altitude helped. The bumpy tracks is where you have to raise the cars to a certain level, and Ferrari tends to struggle less compared to other teams.
Well, Ferrari this season made a huge problem of they rebuilt their entire car and forgot to fix the one thing that caused them problems last year, which was running it, and in 2023 as well, which is that basically they were bottoming out and then having to lift the car. This year they got it to the point where it was so bad that they got disqualified from China, for example. They got disqualified. So yeah, I think it's just that everyone's had to run the car higher, and that's where they thrive.
Pretty much.
Simple.
Also,
Yeah.
Ferrari is probably the best cars over curbs. That's why it was on pretty much at the same level as Leclerc was pretty much at the same level as Lando in Sector 1 and Sector 3. He lost a chunk of his time in Sector 2, which was basically the fast speed sections. Okay.
I sadly have to run in like 3 minutes or 4 minutes. So I don't know how many.
We're done.
Cool.
Yeah, we're mostly done.
Cool.
Okay, so this one is for Jason. We'll get to it later. Dane will get to it later. Jason will get to it later. Red Robin 1122. Is it time to reevaluate Oscar Piastri? Seems that if he starts the weekend on the back foot, he never finds his pace. Only silver lining is that last year he was pretty close to Lando in remaining races from Brazil to Abu Dhabi. So maybe he's just not good at Mexico or Austin. I'd say give him time. As I said in the pod, give Oscar time. It's too early to make any judgment.
It hasn't even been that many races that he's been off. It's been like 3 races or something.
Yeah. Sri Lakshmi, why has Oscar's performance dropped so suddenly? It's very similar to last year when his performance dropped. There's so much discrepancy between 2 McLarens. Do you think the battle is over and we can declare Norris champion? Nope. Give it time.
No.
Give it time.
Battle's not over this year till the last race.
I'll just say one thing for the fans. Look, guys, since 2021, we've not had a battle. Since
enjoy
2021, I've had grey in my beard.
Yeah.
It takes a long time until we get a championship battle. So enjoy these 4 races.
4 races left with 3 drivers who could win the championship, and it genuinely is going. Regardless of what happens, it's most likely going to the very final lap of the very final race. Let's enjoy this, because next year there is a good chance that it'll be 40-second lead to whoever's in the fastest car.
Don't talk about the 42nd we had this weekend. Of
Sorry,
course.
my bad. Well, I mean every race. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Final. Central 0.99. Okay. Is Lando hate going too far? Is he now underrated? I think we kind of touched on it. By the way, just one thing. Why the fuck was he being booed? In your fucking
this was
country?
some people said because of the Monza thing, and I'm like, there's no way there's that many fans annoyed about the Monza thing. That was, I guarantee they asked one Mexican guy who was like, yeah, it was for the Monza thing, and then they just decided that was the narrative. In my opinion, it's because there's a lot of Max fans there, and you know what some Max fans can be like around Norris. I think people might find it strange that like there's a lot of Max fans, but the thing is, a lot of the Checo fans were massively happy about him getting his wins with Red Bull, therefore became Red Bull fans. They all love Max, and a lot of people here aren't that pushed about the whole, like, you know, when people are like, oh, Max versus Checo, they must be doing something to Checo's car. Most people here are just like, yeah, Max is fucking amazing. That's why he was winning. Like, you know, that's simple as that. They're just like, oh, he's incredible. So I think a lot of people are just Max fans here, and therefore Max fans were booing Lando because of the Max Lando thing. Yeah. I think it's as simple as that.
Okay.
And sadly, Checo wasn't there to be like, whoa, what do you do? Because remember, Checo was like, hey, when, you know, yeah.
Would Max have got a penalty for what Hamilton did? I don't think so. He needs to commit war crimes like last year's Grand Prix to get a 5-second penalty. I think he would have got a penalty.
I love how basically now we've switched it to where there's some sort of Dutch bias in the FIA. But anyway.
Anyhow, that's it. Yeah. That's done.
Cool.
Dane, we will address your question next.
What was the question? Was it a quick one?
It's a fucking long one. So it's about Vettel being the GOAT and something.
Okay. We'll talk about it next week.
We'll get to it in detail. We'll get to it in detail for sure.
Cool.
Okay.
Cool.
That's it. We're done.
Thank you, buddy.
Thanks for watching, guys. Again, drop your comments, everything. That's fine. Do tell us how you honestly feel about Lance Stroll in the comments.
Yes.
Yeah.
Please do.
Be honest.
Thank you, buddy.
And blunt. Go nuts. Take care. Bye-bye. We'll see you next time.
Bye.